Hello and welcome to the next episode of the podcast on negotiation. And today I have a treat for all of us, and that is the one and only Greg Williams. Greg, great to have you with us.
Thank you, Remy. And boy, oh boy, the treat is going to be mine in being with you and all of the guests that will actually see or hear this.
Not only kind but humble, but at the same time, you're the master negotiator. So why don't you tell us a few words about you, about your background, and how your journey started?
Okay, well, I'm going to go into teaching mode right now. And what I mean by that, in a negotiation, you always should know what question you're really answering. So, Remy, to your question, I'll say, what would you like to know about?
So let's start then. Let me take the role of a student and let me let me politely answer the question, Greg. So let's start with the origins. When did you realize that negotiation and related aspects such as reading body language are interesting, intriguing? When did you decide that you would like to focus your career, your business on exactly this, and not, for example, become the next CEO?
Well, I love negotiation and definitely adding the body language aspect into it. Believe it or not, it started back when I was 4 years old. And people go, 4 years old? And yes, because I grew up in an impoverished environment. I watched my mother, my grandmother really negotiate for everything. And at 4 years old, my parents allowed me to shine shoes at the corner bar, which was maybe three or four doors away from our home. My father built a shoe shine kit box for me, and away I went. And what I noticed was, depended upon how I approach people, shoe shine, sir, shoe shine, sir, shoe shine, Mr. Johnson. I noticed people responded to me differently at 4 years old. Now, that was intuition more than anything else kicking in. But even then, the body language aspect was something I didn't realize I was gathering at that time. But I noticed also, if I observed how people approached me before entering the bar, that they also had a different demeanor that they displayed towards me. So if they were walking fast to get inside the bar, I'd say, "Shoe shine, sir," and before I could finish, they'd be gone. So I learned to reposition myself, and in a negotiation, that's what one is constantly doing, such that I was just about slightly blocking the entryway to the bar. But even more so, I noticed by some people rushing in and others being more casual about it, I would approach them with, "Shoe shine, sir, so you can look better for people inside." That even gave me a different perspective. Okay, let's do a fast forward because I didn't stay 4 years old long. As I progressed through my professional career, though, I had already learned a lot about the negotiation process, when offers should be made, and the body language aspect came in about the timing. You can make a fantastic offer, and if it's at the wrong time, meaning the other side is not amenable to receiving it because of whatever, the offer will fall flat. Reverse that situation whereby they are really receptive. They're leaning in through the body language gestures. They're asking questions. Well, if we did do this, how might we implement it? That's a different thought process that they are emitting to you. And those are the little cues that one has to be aware of. So, all of that is when I first started gaining insight into when I was 4 years old. And I could tell the rest of the story, but as they say, we'll come back to that later if you choose to.
So it seems that Greg, you're a personification of the American dream, right? From a shoe polisher to a global expert, the master negotiator, and hopefully a millionaire as well.
Well, okay. The money aspect is something I achieved many years ago. And it did not fulfill me to the degree that I thought, okay, so you are at a particular certain monetary status. Oh, look at me. Nah, that's never been what I have strived to achieve. My mission has always been to give to others such that the knowledge I've been given by God can enhance their lives. And I had to shift that focus, truth be known, Remy, because when I had lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of money, I would freely give it to people whenever they needed it, whenever they wanted it. If they'd asked to borrow money, I'd do so. And then I hit a rough patch in business. And I turned to some of the people that were friends and asked for help. And that's something my pride doesn't, well, it didn't. And I caught myself because I said doesn't, meaning subliminally, my mindset is still that I don't necessarily like to ask for help. I'd rather help others. But when I did do that back during those times, the friends that I had disappeared. And that taught me a lesson. Money is only valuable to the degree that one uses it for a purpose that satisfies that individual. And that's when I discovered, it's not about what you have. It's about for me what you can give to others so that they can have more, be whatever they're looking for to achieve.
That's an amazing story, which I find very consistent with how I got to know you. So,
Mhm.
guys, Greg is the author of a book called "Body Language Secrets to Win More Negotiations," which I'm currently reading, and Greg gave me his book with a nice note inside. And I thought to myself, well, it's a give and take, right? So what can we do together? And one of the ideas that we develop is to have a deeper conversation about the book, and this is what's happening right now. So, Greg, why did you? What was the reason? What was the moment when you made the decision? Hey, let's write a book about body language. Was there a sort of a particular event, person that triggered this idea, or how did you decide to write the book?
Well, I had written five books prior to that one, five or six. I don't remember which order that book came in, or my other one, Negotiating with a Bully. Since we're holding up books, I'll hold this one up too. So it was actually driven by the fact that I wanted to give more insight about the negotiation process and how it is that body language enhances that. Then it was my publisher that was really the driver behind it. They wanted me to expound upon the knowledge in the prior books I had written and also to give more insight in specificities as far as, okay, so if you're talking to someone and all of a sudden they lean back, what does that really indicate? Can you really make a discernment based on that one gesture, et cetera, et cetera? So in the book, I go deeper into the fact that not only must you observe a signal, but you should look for clusters of signals to indicate when someone is thinking one way versus another. And thus, you should never make an assumption about how someone is thinking based on just that one particular gesture that you see. So, when the publisher asked me to write the book, I thought, okay, what else can I say about body language that I haven't said all over the world, basically? And again, I'm saying that with modesty, not to boast or anything. And they said, well, yeah, some people have seen you, some people have heard you in seminars, webinars, et cetera, et cetera. But, and I think back then they may have even been called teleseminars too, whatever. But they said, this is a way to get your message out to the masses and make sure that more people have the opportunity to experience your expertise. Now, of course, that touched my heart because that was aligned with my mission in life to give more people insights, to help more people with insights, to promote whatever endeavors they're actually engaging in. So that was the genesis behind it. And I'm going to take this a step further and talk about the other book, Negotiating with a Bully. The reason they asked me to write that one was because of, let's say, the then current political process that was occurring in the United States. And I'm being extremely diplomatic when I say that. So those that both of those situations was the genesis behind writing the book, negotiating with a bully, and body language secrets to win more negotiations. And my motto is you're always negotiating, and that's prominent throughout the both books actually.
Thank you, Greg, for sketching out the history. So now, to a couple of hundred people will probably watch us or listen to us in the next few days, at least. And to those who have not experienced you in action directly in the webinars, seminars, and in your lectures, how would you summarize body language secrets, the book Body Language Secrets, in, let's say, one or two sentences?
It's a must read.
It's a must read, that we know already, but why it's a must read?
Yeah, and I was going to say, see, I love to be playful also. It's part of my demeanor. The reason I suggest that it's a must read is because there are aspects conveyed in nonverbal communication, body language, that will give you additional insights about what's occurring in the other individual or opposition's mind, even though their words may differ from their actions. And if you are astute enough to capture their actions, you'll know when their words may be misleading intentionally or unintentionally. And that's why I suggest you actually, if you choose to, read the book to gain that additional insight, which will definitely make you a better negotiator. If you hear someone saying, yes, and for those that are listening to this, I'm actually shaking my head, no, well, that means there's a conflict in that person's verbal response and their body language. So, what should you do? Well, that's a trick question to a degree because one thing you want to do is to confirm them shaking their head no really means no, because in some cultures, people will shake their head indicating yes. So we could even go into further delving deeper into that type of aspect. But the book covers those types of nuances, which I said a moment ago will help everyone become a better negotiator.
That sounds great. So that sounds convincing, at least to me. I've already started, haven't finished it yet, but I'm on my way. And one of the questions I probably many of the readers and listeners are probably asking themselves. So how well, there are two questions: how easy it is to detect those cues, those nonverbal cues, and what is more reliable actually. So are those cues that are hard to detect, or the content of the conversation? Yes, Greg, what do you think? Let's start with detection. Yes, how easy or hard is it to detect those confirming or contradicting nonverbal cues that accompany us, basically whenever we engage in public or not public or interpersonal interactions?
Well, depending upon your skill set, it can be difficult or it can be hard. The point is, though, everyone has the ability, and they do it all day long, to observe body language gestures. A lot of times, people are not paying attention astutely enough to recognize what is actually occurring, which means if you heighten your perspective on just that, you will be able to discern more about what someone is truly thinking. And I mentioned a moment ago, if someone is shaking their head while saying yes, how do you validate that? You can ask a follow up question. So, what I understand is you really mean yes, correct? And for those that can't see what I'm doing, I'm literally gesturing by shaking my head as the individual was doing a moment ago. So the person says yes. Okay, that's point one, that you have taken a step towards validating what that person has said. And then you can ask another question. Let's say you're talking about some contract aspect or proposal in the contract, and you ask, you agreed with this before, right? And again, for those that can't see what I'm doing, I'm shaking my head saying no. And the person says, yes. Okay, you've gotten another point of confirmation. Now you've gotten 2 points that, unlike people that you may be accustomed to interacting with that shake their head meaning no, this person shakes their head to mean yes. So body language reading is always based on the individual, and thus, even across different cultures, you have to establish how someone uses their body language in a particular situation, and that becomes your baseline from which you compare their future actions. I've had clients, Remy, that have requested I go into environments. Sometimes they were just public environments to observe a team, individuals that we'd be negotiating with, just to observe the body language. And that would be me starting to base their foundation upon how they use certain gestures when they're happy, when they're sad, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a long answer to a short question.
So this sounds to me, Greg. That reading body language is probably a skill, right? Is it learnable? What do you think? Is it something that we can get better at with practice and structure feedback, or is it? Would you say it's pure talent or art?
No, it's actually a skill that can be obtained. And as I said a moment ago, it's something that's innate in all of us. There are times when we'll go, he was grunchy or something was not right. I had a feeling. Okay, you're speaking of a kinesthetic experience that you had with someone based on what you perceived of their actions. You've noted that. Well, I knew something wasn't right. Okay, so what was it that you really observed that made you feel, speaking kinesthetically, that something wasn't right? Those are the type of cues that you should, I say should, that you could actually pick up on to actually understand what it is that you are really sensing in such situations. Maybe the person frowned momentarily as they were saying, good morning. And that you expected them to be more cheerful or something of that nature. But by paying attention to the signals that you are receiving, you can become better at deciphering body language cues. You do it every day anyway. You do it
Mhm.
multiple times a day throughout the day. So just pay more attention to it and understand what you're looking for. Somebody pulling away from you as they're talking is indicating that they don't want to be as close to you as they were just a moment ago. Why?
Mhm.
It was something that was said or done that made them momentarily pull away. Now, how about if they just pulled away because they were uncomfortable because of being standing outside and the heat got to them or something of that nature? Those are also things you can discern by observing when they actually made that particular gesture or movement. The body always wants to stay in a state of comfort. And when it's out of that state of comfort, it will do something to pull itself back into that state of comfort. Somebody starts to lie and, they may touch their face or something. It's because they're trying to make themselves feel comfortable, knowing that they are not telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So those are gestures that you can pick up on. And just rubbing the eye does not necessarily mean that someone is lying when they do that. All it's saying is observe. All I'm saying is pay attention to the cluster of actions that someone emits, and you'll gain more insight into their thought process.
That sounds convincing. Sounds great, Greg. So we've established it's a skill, right? So it's learnable. It's something that we can get better at. I'm sure most of the listeners are now probably asking themselves, so how do I do this? How do I work on my body language skills or body language reading skills? Is there a structured or systematic process that we could, because if you want to learn how to be a better swimmer or a better volleyball player, we go and practice, and there are other people who are there who are willing to teach us, who are willing to show us how to do things better, or there are YouTube tutorials, there are books written on the topic. How does it work with body language? Is there systematic training that we can sign up for, or is it purely sort of self awareness issue?
It's actually a combination of both from my perspective. And I say that because there are tons of very good body language courses that are out there that one can gain insight from. And what I did, as a matter of fact, was gained insight from this individual, that individual, and you start to build your own potpourri of insights. And then I would test different thoughts processes also. Remy, there were times early on when I'd be in an airport and I'd observe an individual doing one thing or another, and I'd walk up to them and I'd say, "Excuse me," I'd introduce myself and I'd tell them that I'm a body language expert. And I'd say, "I actually observed you doing XYZ. Can you please confirm if I was accurate or not?" And after they got over the shock of looking at me like, who is this strange person coming up to me? They tell me. So I use that real life situations to hone my skills. I've also worked with agencies within the United States that have three initials. I'll leave it up to you to decipher what that means. And in certain cases, in working with those agencies, and you know this well, Remy, also, as we teach, we learn. And that taught me a lot about the interpersonal mindsets of some people that are out on the edge, even. So I say that to simply say there are all aspects of body language that one can gain and glean insight about. And you can go about doing it. Sometimes turn the volume off the TV or down on the TV and observe the gestures that the commentators are actually making. And you'll notice I talk with my hands, and a lot of times they are restrained because they're holding a piece of paper so as not to use a lot of hand gestures. It's extremely difficult to talk without moving your hands. And I suggest to everyone either listening or hearing this to try and talk with someone for 1 minute and just sit on your hands or don't use your hands at all and find out how difficult it is. So, going back to learning more about body language, those are the type of things that you can learn to do by paying attention not only to how people are using their gestures, taking courses. You mentioned YouTube a moment ago. Yeah, hey, you can go to YouTube and just key in the term body language and just observe whatever you can glean there. The thing is, pay more attention to what's going on in your environment, and you'll start to observe more body language signals.
That sounds like a great set of recommendations. So let's now learn from the master negotiator, from Dr. Greg Williams. Greg, when you negotiate for big bucks, or when a lot is at stake, yeah, so I don't know, family, maybe not bucks, but peace of mind, yes, or peace at home. Um, what do you usually look at when it comes to nonverbal aspects of communication, right? Not necessarily what is being said or what is missing, but how it is delivered, with respect to all these dimensions you talk about in your book,
Mhm.
right? So what is the sequence? Do you look in a particular place first, then you look somewhere else second, or how do you process all these signals that a verbal message is accompanied by?
Well, here's an answer I give to a lot of questions a lot of times. It depends. And I say it depends because research, especially in high stake negotiations, have already been done about why the other side wants what they want, who the leader of the other side is, what's the background of that type of individual, what's their negotiation style, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so when I walk into an environment, in certain situations, I'll be the first to enter, or my team, the team that I'm with or representing, will be the first to enter, or it'll be the reverse. And again, I said it depends because if someone has a demeanor or an attitude of, we're going to take a win lose type of perspective, the only way that I can win is if you lose, and that's what they're trying to project on us, we may adopt a strategy of, okay, we'll go in the room first and then allow them to come in so we can observe their demeanor. Okay, what am I looking for? I'm looking to see who really is the leader of the negotiation. Hypothetically, you could have a team of six individuals that are on the other side, and the person that is supposed to be the leader of that particular session is actually a subordinate to someone. And I've had this occur in live situations, a subordinate to someone that's really the team leader. But why do they have this other individual out front first? It's to serve as a deflector. And what do I mean by that? That individual is serving to field questions, may act like he or she is really unaware about what's going on to see what type of reactions we give. They may give false data, and it's a setup and some really high stake, tough, rough negotiations. And it has occurred with union negotiations that I've participated in the past. And again, that individual is just there. And what we say on our team environments from time to time is they were there to play with us, to see if, like a cat plays with a mouse sometimes, if they did this to us, how it would respond, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one thing, that one environment in which I may act or adopt a different set of strategies per what I'm looking for. I'll also observe how many times that supposed leader looks left or right, and to whom that individual is looking at in order to identify who the real leader happens to be. I'll look at the expressions on the faces of the opposition. That individual that's supposed to be leading says something and someone grimaces. It's like, why did that person do that? Because more than likely, the individual that's supposed to be leading said or did something that was off script per what was supposed to be conveyed. But that person has also indicated a slight form of disgust that they had with that. So there are so many nuances to observe. If we actually come in last, I'm watching how the other side is watching us, our interaction, our gestures, and seeing how they respond in kind. Who looks at whom? Why do they do so? What are the facial expressions that are emitted? And there are times, if everyone is standing before we actually sit down at the formal table, I'm observing the foot placement, the feet placement of individuals as they're communicating with one another, because that will tell me also to what degree they are truly engaged, to what degree they have a hierarchical level to another individual. There are so many aspects. I mean, so many, Remy, that goes into looking at all kinds of gestures to discern what is really occurring when I enter an environment. And I love it though. I really, really love it, because people don't have to say a word and I can tell what they're thinking just by walking into a room.
So that sounds complex, right? That probably requires a lot of experience to be able to make sense out of such a complex data set that we are being bombarded with, both in terms of the words and their meaning, but also what accompanies them. Let me ask you a spontaneous question. We've met recently in Paris. And what was your analysis of my body language when you first saw me?
You see that smile that you're displaying right now? That was what I first observed. And although you and I had communicated via email, I had not met you in person, and I did not know exactly who you were. And I remember looking at your name tag, and then all of the warmth that you normally display, which you displayed right then when you and I first met in Paris, came rushing back to me. And here's something else. Not only did I experience the warmth that emanated from you, I could tell by your response that you received the same thing back from me. So it told me instantly, this person is welcoming, an open individual. And I'll tell you something else too that I will assess from time to time, and that is, to what degree is someone honest? So I'll listen to what people say in response to what other people say, and I'll even gather additional information in that way. You came across as very honest, sincere, someone that was dedicated to helping others, and I was like, yep. What we would say back in the States is, that's my homeboy for sure.
Oh, that's Greg. Thank you so much. I mean, how about my feet? Did you look at my feet?
Can't see them right now. Your feet were, again, that's something else though. your feet were aligned with mine, meaning I had your full attention, and you had mine because our feet were together, facing one another. When someone is talking to you, and all of a sudden, one foot can even point in a different direction, they've started to disengage at that particular moment, and they're usually going to exit the conversation in the direction that foot is pointing in. So those are the type of things that you can observe even in a negotiation. If you're standing and you see someone do that, you have two options at that point. You can say, would you like to continue this later? Now, did you notice that gesture? Would you like to continue this later? As opposed to, would you like to continue this later? Or, oh, come on, what's wrong? Would you like to continue this later? Tonality conveys messages even in a verbal sense too. And by at least acknowledging that you've recognized something about that person's demeanor, posture, more than likely you will gain a sense of goodwill with that individual. Oh, well, right now things aren't going as well as I thought they would. And you say, okay, well, is there anything I can help you with? No, 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 but I look forward to negotiating with you. More than likely, you've gained an ally just in that quick, short interaction. So your feet were truly aligned with mine with yours. And as I came to know you throughout the time that we spent in Paris, like I said, I thought, this is my homeboy.
Thank you so much. It's a true honor to belong to that category. You have made it. So thank you, Greg, for your compliments, for your kind words.
You're welcome.
And by the way, guys, I don't know if you knew it. This is body language is a very complex discipline. It's a very complex discipline. There has been quite a lot of research done on cataloging and taxonomy of facial expressions and attempts to attach meaning to those expressions. So we have a limited number of facial muscles, yes, and these facial muscles have limited by high number of possible contraction constellations, which produce basically I forgot now the number, but a lot of different facial expressions. And there's something which is called facial action coding system, where each of those possibilities is assigned to a potential emotion or potential emotional state or intention. And it's not easy. It's not easy. I've many years ago I've tried to look at it. It takes a lot of time to practice and learn the connection between, first of all, static expressions and their meaning, and then even after having learned the connection between static expression, usually in form of pictures, and their meaning, it's still, there is no guarantee that we will catch those expressions and correctly identify them in a discussion or in a live conversation. But my question, Greg, was I was going to be what happens when these collide? As this is what I've been always struggling with. So let's assume we've accumulated your level of expertise in reading body language, and at some point we have doubt. We are meeting a new person, and signals we're getting from nonverbal cues, they seem to clash with what we're hearing. Yes. What then?
I always say, follow the body first. And what I mean by that is listen, observe the gestures that are being emitted by the body. Again, the body wants to stay in a state of comfort. There are two fears that we come in the world with. Only two fears. The rest we learn. The two fears are the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. You make a loud noise around a baby and the baby will jerk. You hold the baby and slightly drop your arms, and I'm not trying to sound sadistic or anything, but just slightly pull your arms down, and the baby's going to flinch. Why? Because the baby's fear of falling, the loud noises, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the thing about that is, as you are listening to someone's words, they're representing their verbal thoughts. The body to the degree that it is aligned, if somebody's displaying comfort gestures, smiling, and things of that nature, and they're saying, I really like you, all of that is going to be in alignment. But if someone says, I think this may be a good deal. And again, for those that are not seeing this visually, I'm shaking my head no as they're saying, I think this may be a good deal. That may cause or be the pause that causes you to validate exactly what you're hearing. And you could do that. You can do that in possibly saying, I hear what you're saying, using the same modality that they're using to represent their thoughts. I'm sensing that you may not be as sure as what you're conveying. And now, for those that are not can't see me, again, I'm indicating yes by nodding my head in the positive. So I'm sending signals back to them verbally and non-verbally to see exactly how they receive the signals and then how they adjust, if they adjust, and then I'll know why they made some form of adjustment. Meaning, they may have discerned that, okay, he's detected that I'm not 100% sure about what I'm saying, and he's questioning me. How am I going to reposition myself? What should I do in this particular situation to ensure him that I'm okay? Uh, so those are the little gestures that you observe. And if you see a distraction or a difference, a differentiation between the words that you're hearing and the body language gestures in a negotiation, depending upon where you are in the negotiation, at least note it in your own mind as something to possibly come back to or address it in the moment, depending upon how dire it is to the negotiation at that moment.
Mm. Yes, yes. The worst, probably probably the worst reaction is to call the shots, saying, "Ah, I see you flinched. I see you scratched, or look to the left, right," and say, "You're probably lying, aren't you?" That's probably the worst possible expression. Wouldn't you say, Greg?
Oh, 1000%. Now, I say 1000%, and at the same time, notice I did not say but. I said and at the same time. If by chance you were negotiating against one of these bully type of negotiators that I talk about in the other book, you may want to take that approach. I don't believe you.
Mm.
I said it with sternness, conviction, and I maintained the eye contact as I was doing so. And observe how that person reacts. Because if that person is trying to bully you, you've just basically shown that individual through your gestures and verbiage. I'm standing up to you. Okay, here's the line. Now what? It's your turn. And see to what degree that person modifies their behavior. With a person that goes along to get along, you definitely would not want to use that tactic because you'd alienate that person. So there's another situation, Remy, where it comes to it depends.
It depends. Yes, exactly. So, speaking of mistakes, yes, in your experience, I think you've trained thousands of people around the world, and probably many of them also in reading body language. What are the most common mistakes in terms of reading, interpreting, or reacting or acting upon the understanding of body language?
The number one mistake that I have observed literally throughout the world is people who will latch on to a particular gesture and assign a meaning, a definition to that particular gesture and hold on to it as though it is a truism that's reality all shaped into one. And in reality, it's difficult to make a judgment from one moment's activity. Do you mind if I talk about one of the messages that we received in the announcement? Okay.
Please do.
One
Please do.
individual, okay. One individual actually said when Remy was kind enough to put the announcement out about this particular webinar that they could tell based on my picture that I was not confident about what I was saying. And boy, if the individual is on the call, I'm not here to embarrass anyone. That's number one. But I would love to delve a lot deeper into that perspective because it is highly, highly inaccurate to say you can discern what somebody's thinking from one particular gesture. I talked about clusters, observing clusters of actions before to validate what you're sensing. And in that particular picture, ironically enough, I was posing literally for thousands of pictures that a photographer was taking. So it was me doing one gesture one moment, at the very next moment, I was in a different gesture. There was no thought process going on in my mind at all. I was literally moving free form or free, whatever they call free flow. I was moving free flow. And the individual, so I thought, interesting. But that is a common mistake that individuals make. They'll look at one gesture. So I suggest to you, if you really want to validate what thoughts are in someone's mind, look at a cluster of actions because it is extremely difficult to discern everything that's going on in that individual's mind based on a snapshot and a moment in time.
Mhm. So, single gesture is one of the mistakes. Probably another one, well, a possibility that we have in order to validate our judgment or our interpretation of what we believe we're seeing is also asking probing questions or sort of testing the grounds from different aspects. So, if we, for example, believe that body language might indicate deceit or deception. There are ways how we can validate that assumption by testing that particular statement or assertion with probing questions, right? So that's also a secret weapon probably that we have in negotiation specific context. Yes, wouldn't you say so, Craig?
Definitely so. And there are situations when someone is not being as forthright or as truthful as they otherwise could be. They may speed the pace of their speech. Why are they doing that? Sometimes it can be pure nerves. Other times it can be because they want to get to the end of that story and get this over with. They want to switch to another topic because they know they're not being truthful. So you can pick up on aspects of their demeanor by the way they actually speak, the tonality they're speaking in, the word choices that they're using, et cetera, et cetera. And when you start to probe, you can then slow the pace down. So if someone is speaking real fast and they're talking about a contract component that they think might be or might not be good enough for this particular agreement that we could reach, and then all of a sudden you slow down and say, well, that's an interesting perspective. Why do you have that?
Mm.
And notice that they change their pace or tone. And that means at that point in time, you'll be leading them per how you are inciting them to think, which is a positive aspect in any negotiation. And you could start to create a bonding process at that moment. If the person is bent on telling the truth, well, this is the best offer that we can make at this particular point in time, you might want to probe with the question of, thank you for that. What would be a better offer that you could make at another time? They've opened the
Tomorrow.
door for you. And it's like, okay, thank you for opening the door. I'll walk in. Thank you very much, type of thing. And some people may look confused, perplexed. Well, what I meant was this is the best offer. What they did a moment ago was possibly tell on themselves. They told you through osmosis, through subliminal speak, that there is a better offer to be had. And then you can even probe to discover what that better offer might be. So you might ask a question. Well, I heard what you said a moment ago. So if we could come to a better offer for both sides, what might it be? Now you're soliciting them to give you their perspective of what a better deal looks like. And now you have additional insight per how you can go about creating that outlook that they are seeking as an outcome.
That's amazing, Greg. I must admit, when I'm reading your book right now, but not from the beginning to the end, but I'm sort of choosing chapters that are more intriguing, or I'm currently thinking about in parallel. And one of those chapters that I've started with is about triggers and hot buttons. It's something that I would like us to talk at least very briefly about. What are your triggers, Greg?
Ah, I'm not going to disclose them on this call because I don't know where it will go. Let me say this though. In the past, and oh boy, let me take a sidebar real fast. Seriously speaking, as professional negotiators, of which I'm sure there are many that are either on this call, on this webinar, or will hear this later, you have to be mindful of your biases because your biases can also be triggers that others can use. And to the degree that they know what they are, they can cause you to go down one path in a negotiation that you otherwise would not have gone down. And thus you have to guard against those triggers. So I will put this in past tense. Years and years ago, one of the triggers that I really had to overcome was the fact that if you're in traffic and somebody blows a horn or something of that nature, I'd lose it, as they say. I'd get very upset, very irate, yada, yada, yada. And the reason I traced back how that trigger came to be, and I did so in order to learn to control it, the environment I grew up in. And I said it was an impoverished environment. It was also an environment whereby if you did someone wrong, as an example, if you accidentally stepped on someone's toe and did not say excuse me quickly and or with the right demeanor, they punch you. I mean, that was the type of environment I grew up in. So it was always an environment of never allow anyone to disrespect you. And it was that trigger of someone blowing the horn because they were saying, you're doing something wrong, I'm going to disrespect you, that I would act one way or another. There's another situation years ago that I've overcome. So for any of you that see this, that I'll be negotiating with in the future, it's no longer valid. If someone would challenge me with an absurdity that was truly just, as I would call it, the mind of the ignorant speaking, I would have to overcome their perceived angst and show them how and why they were wrong. And I discovered from an older negotiator that taught me a lot of insights. Look, people will do things to get under your skin. And if you allow them to trigger you, they've done so. So from that point on, I started taking into consideration why people were saying things, what their attempts were, how they were trying to influence my thought process and actions per what they were doing and saying. And I learned to overcome those. I'll go back to something I said a moment ago, though. Be aware of your biases because you will also be conflicted or can be conflicted with the triggers that you allow to show anger at times based on what you think about a certain type of people, a certain whatever be the case. And then if you realize you're negotiating with that type, and I'm stereotyping here for sure, type of individual or team or whatever, you had to be mindful of the fact that you may throw yourself off your game simply because of the inner triggers that are conflicted within you.
That's very wise what you said, Greg. Basically, it's I'm taking 2 points with me. Number one is we need to be aware of our own triggers because ultimately activating them puts us or may put us at a disadvantage, either with respect to ourselves, yes, or with respect to the objectives that we intend to pursue, especially in negotiations in a negotiation setting, right? So getting our triggers activated typically doesn't do us any good because they produce high emotional response or intensive emotional response, which then clouds our judgment and impairs our ability to think rationally. How do we? Then the second point is that we can overcome those triggers, or we can remove or we can soften those triggers. But the question is, Greg, that I'm thinking about is how do we do it? Yes, how can we work on our triggers? And so, for example, for me, one of the triggers has always been injustice. It's always been injustice, unfairness, and And I've been thinking, yes, it's typically gets me going. It typically gets me going, but how should I, or should I, in the first place, work on that trigger? Do you have any particular recommendations for us if once we've discovered what it is for us, and each of us, by the way, has his or her own triggers that produce high emotional responses. The question is, once we've identified, what do we do with them? How do we work on them?
Well, I have 2 points that I wish to make per the question that you just posed. Number one, all triggers do not necessarily have to be bad. So it's the mindset that we associate with a trigger per if it's good or bad. We can use triggers to invigorate ourselves also, which will make us better in particular situations. The answer to the question more directly, though, is Remy, you already mentioned it, being aware of it. That's number one. To the degree that you are aware of it and choose to alter the response that you give to it, then means all you have to do is do it. Now, that sounds very simplistic, but it is reality because if you think about the fact that you react in a particular manner when you are triggered right now and you no longer want that to be the case, you're reacting based on the way that you feel you should react. So if you change that whole mindset, shift your paradigm to, well, from now on, when this happens, I want to respond in a particular manner. Like I said, when I was much younger and people blowing their horns. Now, when I hear somebody blowing their horn at me, I think they're saying, oh my gosh, Greg, I hope you have a fantastic day. That may or may not be what they're saying, but it's what I choose to believe. And thus, that's how I chose to control that particular trigger. You give triggers. Everyone in the world gives triggers the meaning that they assign to them. So why not assign a meaning that will be more beneficial to yourself? That's how I've dealt with it. And that's the suggestion that I would offer to anyone.
So, guys, be aware. That's
Yeah.
that's number one. Yes, be aware and choose your response. Yes, once you're aware of your natural instinctive response, you can start, and only you can start modifying it if you decide that it bothers you, that is ineffective, that it gets you in a place where you don't want to be. Hey, this is nothing that has to stay like it. But it takes a great deal, I guess, of self-reflection and work on ourselves, on our automated instinctive responses that we demonstrate in such situations.
And you're absolutely right about that, Remy, because I'll tell you something else that I had to start doing with that situation where I get upset with someone if they blew the horn or whatever. To the degree that I was able to, I would signal to the other person with a smile on my face, roll your window down, let your window down. And I'd apologize to them, first of all, for my reaction to them. And to drive that point even deeper in my own inner mind, I would offer the person a small denomination, a few dollars or something of that nature. Meanwhile, they're looking at me like, oh, this is a crazy man. And I tell them I was doing all of this to reinforce in myself not to react like that in the future. And I appreciate you helping me along that path. I got some strange responses over time, but by doing it repeatedly, to the degree that I controlled it a little more the next time, a little more, a little more, a little more, I was able to eliminate it over time. And you hit that key phrase on the head a moment ago when you said it does take some discipline, and I'm paraphrasing.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. So you guys know what to do. Work on your triggers if you believe that they get you where you don't want to be. It's instinctive. It's part of our nature, but it doesn't have to stay like this forever. So, Greg, we know that body language matters. We know that reading it is difficult. We know that also reading is beneficial in the context of negotiation. So. And at the same time, the most important moment where body language plays an enormously strong role is when we meet someone for the first time. Yes. what is the set of your recommendations, and we to come across as friendly and competent, friendly and potentially competent negotiation partner?
Ah, first of all, again, you've already done your research. Even though you're meeting the person for the first time, you have this set of thought processes in your head about what that individual happens to be, what they might do in certain situations, et cetera, et cetera. You can come across, if it's even if it's a bully type of negotiator, you can come across initially as someone that's friendly, open, with a nice smile on your face, open body language gesture, palms up, away from your body, et cetera, et cetera. And just tell the person, oh, it's nice to meet you, and observe the person's response. Yeah, okay, thank you. And it's like, whoa, so how's your day going thus far? Now, for those that can't see me, I'm leaning in slightly with a tilted head, which signifies inquisitiveness, and I'm doing several other things at the same time. I'm slightly invading that person's space or getting closer to that person to see how they react to that gesture. Let's say the person stands in the same posture that they had a moment ago, and they say, well, my day is going good. You may notice in my tonality a slightly softer demeanor that's being projected at that particular moment in time. Contrast that with somebody, you say, good morning. And the person says, well, good morning to you too. Okay, that person has told you you've offended them possibly with the way you said good morning to them. And you say, oh, I didn't mean any offense by that. But you're talking about a different mindset now that you'll be negotiating with, as opposed to the prior situation against. So those are just little quick insights to be observant of.
That sounds great. What we've learned also is, or what we were currently working on, looking at closely, is that likability improves the quality of our negotiated results. Any recommendations, Greg, in terms of what it means for the body language that we should display? How to be more likable when it comes to not only what we say, but also how we say it?
Well, you may have heard the cliche, people like people that are like themselves. And what that means is people will naturally migrate towards those that they have an affinity towards or to. If you mirror someone's body language to the degree that you're being open, honest, and sincere, they will subconsciously link your body language to the same signs that they emit, and they will, maybe they're unaware of it, like you even more. So that likability factor is something that you can gain, I'm going to say almost instantly, just by the way you approach someone, how you interact with them, the tonality that you use. You can be nice and warm and open through your tonality, as opposed to a little more harsher. And you may have heard my tonality change or switch right there. And those are some of the ways that you can actually meld into someone's mindset to have them be reflective of themselves through your body language gestures.
So that has been a great conversation, Greg. Thank you so much for being with us today. Guys, if you would like to find out more about how to read body language and why it matters in the context of negotiation, I can only repeat my recommendation. Greg wrote a great book called Body Language Secrets to Win More Negotiations. I will add a link to that book under the recording. For now, Greg, thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you so much for your patience and answering all my questions. I think you want to add something.
Yes, very good. You picked up on my body language gesture. I would also, if you don't mind, like to I like to give and help people. I would just like to say I am creating a new course that'll be out most likely later in 2026. If you'd like to sign up early for that, you can go to themasternegotiator.com/WNA. That's the Williams Negotiation Architecture, WNA in small letters. I'd be very appreciative to serve you. Thank you,
Thank
Remy.
you so much. I will also add this link underneath, which you are also welcome to do it yourself under our podcast, under our stream on LinkedIn. and other media. So, Greg, it's been wonderful to have you with us today. Thank you so much for allowing us to learn from your experience and wisdom. And guys, thank you so much for listening. All the best, and until the next time on the podcast on negotiation. Thank you.